Hey, ladies and gents, welcome to the Controlled Interest Gamecast, episode 174. As always, I'm joined by Dom.
Praise the sun.
Oh, I didn't do my rigmarole, where we talk about video games and everything happening in the industry. Second episode of the new year. No Jordan this week, unfortunately. Some things came up. We're still going to be doing Game of the Year discussions during the second part of the podcast. He won't be here for that, unfortunately, but he should be back next week along with hopefully a guest we have planned. I don't want to say in case things happen and then we don't have a guest, but hopefully we'll have a guest and Jordan back for the first time in the new year. What?
The PS5 controller might be called the DualShock 5.
Oh, wow. Breaking news here.
Everyone. Yeah.
So what we're going to do, if you didn't listen last week or for some reason you forgot about it, we're changing the template of the podcast. The way it works now is we're going to be starting with the news, then going into the topic, and then ending the show with what we've been playing. We're no longer doing what we're going to be playing as a segment, and news will always be at the front of the show. So definitely look forward to that. I think it'll help the show gel well. I talked about it a little bit on last week's episode if you want to hear the full rundown as to why we're doing that. Anyways, in terms of news, pretty slow news week, you would say, if you're looking at things. Now, that's obviously a joke. We had 3 big delays for spring 2020 releases. 2 of them were, I guess all 3 of them were technically not surprising, but 2 of them moved quite far down the year in terms of 2020. So the first one was Final Fantasy VII Remake. That got delayed from March 3rd to April 10th. So when that got delayed, people were like, oh, wow, now we have a 3-week run of Resident Evil 3 Remake on the 3rd, RE7, Final Fantasy VII Remake on April 10th, and then Cyberpunk on April 17th. But unfortunately, April had a game move out of that slot in Cyberpunk 2077. It was delayed to September 17th, 2020. And we'll get into that. But the other delay that happened was Marvel's Avengers, which was scheduled to go in May, releasing on May 15th, but also got delayed to September, that being September 4th, 2 weeks before now, Cyberpunk 2077. I want to talk to you about what do you think the most significant delay is in terms of like the publisher's perspective, right, Dom? And then we talked about this a little bit in our group message. What's the most significant delay to you personally, right? So I'll start. I think there's out of these 3 delays, I think 2 of them are for quality all of them are technically for quality concerns. Marvel's Avengers had a rough go of it once it was revealed, and then people saw trailers. The Kamala Khan trailer got people a little bit more invested in what the game can be. That game getting delayed is not really surprising. Cyberpunk 2077, same thing. Their statement of it wanting to be a defining experience for the generation makes sense. CD Projekt Red also has a history of delaying games, just like Rockstar, because they make these like really detailed, big, giant worlds. The Final Fantasy VII Remake one was also for quality, but it's really significant because some people missed, I guess, that March 31st is the end of Square Enix's fiscal quarter and fiscal year overall. So it's the end of their 4th year, their Q4 fiscal quarter, and also their 2019-2020 fiscal year. And it getting delayed to April 10th means that Final Fantasy VII Remake gets moved out of that into the new fiscal year, which obviously has huge repercussions for stakeholders and their overall stock and investors and everything, right? So I think that's the most significant one because it had to be egregious enough of like a setback in development for them to move a month out of that fiscal year, because now they had to go up to their investors and let them know that their projections for the total revenue for the fiscal year are going to be down greatly, obviously because Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be one of their biggest sellers, and it was likely the game that they put most of their numbers into in terms of trying to guess what they were going to make for the year, projected revenue. And I want to hear from you. What do you think about that? Do you think it had to be something significant because of that? Moving a game out of the end of a fiscal year is pretty significant for a business.
Yeah, the weird thing too, though, is it still is. It's just the short delay, right? Like just over a month. So that's kind of weird because it's a big move financially, but for only an extra month. So that is just weird, I guess, because you're right. There's so much incentive to try to get that done by the end of March. So I'm surprised that they were able to, basically get that approved only for an extra month. If you said I needed an extra 6 months or 3 months, then it's like, okay, obviously there's a significant change in quality from that. But like, not to say that a month can't make a huge difference, but that would be harder. I would imagine that'd be harder to sell when you're asking for a delay from your publisher. But yeah, you're right. That's definitely significant from a financial perspective.
Well, and with that, people obviously there's a very strong case to be made for Marvel's Avengers getting delayed, but some people feel it might have been a repercussion of Final Fantasy's delay going to April, because then you have Marvel's Avengers in May. If they're wanting to, if in terms of revenue, they want to make sure that they're earning revenue pretty evenly across the board at high rates throughout the year. So it being delayed to September makes sense for them to have something big in the fall, because if you think about it, it's like, what else would Square Enix have in the fall that could even contend? And Marvel's Avengers is a huge property. There's also, this goes to the Cyberpunk 2077 thing, which you had something personally you want to talk about with it in regards to PS5. People are thinking that maybe Avengers and Cyberpunk got delayed not because the games specifically that are coming out on Xbox One X and PS4 Pro and the regular base editions are having issues. It's that they want to work towards having those enhanced next-gen editions done, or at least the framework for the back-end boost for those systems. So that way when people are getting those new consoles, they're also taking those experiences with them as well, or maybe buying it a second time for that system, however that goes. But you mentioned in chat that this Cyberpunk delay changes how you're planning to deal with the PS5 launch.
Yeah, I mean, it depends, because there's still so much we don't know about how, these late current gen games are going to be handled going into PS5 and Series X, right? So potentially it changes things, right? Because I like to keep an outlook, like, oh, what's coming out this year? How long is this going to take for me to play this? And I can kind of map out, what's going to go where, at what times. So initially, Cyberpunk comes out in April, or May, or was it April or May?
Mid-April, yeah, 16th.
Right. So it's like, okay, yeah, that's, I'm going to spend all summer doing that. And then maybe one or two other things, and then that's going to be it for this generation, right? Because especially knowing that everything forward is going to be backwards compatible, at least with the current gen, then there's not as much incentive to stick around, right? But now, because this is such a large game, and I know that I'm going to want to be playing, it's going to take me months to play it, and it comes out in September, if there's not like a big difference between the PS4 version and these, presumed PS5 version, then I'm probably just going to stick around on PS4, and at least until I'm done with Cyberpunk, right? And then kind of upgrade. That's what I'm thinking, right? But if they say, oh, well, it's the same game, it's still a PS4 version, but, it's enhanced at least on PS5, then that changes things up too. So it kind of depends on how they handle it. But now, because the timing is closer, the launch of Cyberpunk with the launch of PS5, then it kind of potentially changes some things in the way I plan things out. But still, some questions had to be answered.
Yeah, so for me, obviously, Xbox has had backwards compatibility on this generation, and PlayStation's looking to do that in the same kind of way with next gen. With Xbox, your game saves are also playable, right, for the previous gen games, like on 360.
Man,
I still have my cloud saves.
Out?
Yeah.
I forgot, because they're good at that shit. So I had played Halo 5 like 2 years ago or something, or I don't know, it was a long time ago. Just played through the campaign, and it was a fun game, and I forgot about it. And then a few months ago, I just for shits and gigs I tried out the xCloud beta, right?
Yeah.
Boot up. Actually, I don't even really boot it up. It gets booted up somewhere in Seattle or whatever, or Washington, whatever, wherever their servers.
Probably for you, a server in Chicago, I'd assume.
Probably Chicago. That's a good point. That's where all the emails go through for Microsoft, is Chicago. But anyway,
yeah.
Booted up on the xCloud beta, and then it fires me up right from where my last save was back when I played it on my Xbox at home, at least a year ago. I think it was almost 2 years ago. Like, I didn't even know that I had a save that was uploaded
the cloud,
somewhere.
Baby.
Yeah. Not only was it uploaded, so I could have, rebuilt it like at home on a new console or something, but straight into xCloud, even in beta, that was like seamless and fun. I have other thoughts on xCloud overall based on the beta, but that part of it, I was like, holy shit, that's sweet. I didn't even think of that, and like, boom, here I am. I was on the last mission or whatever. But yeah, they're pretty good at that cloud save thing. That's what I gathered.
We don't know exactly how PlayStation 5's backwards compatibility is going to function with cloud saves and stuff, so I can't speak to that. But for Xbox, I know for certain, because of my experience with it, that if I buy Cyberpunk in September, I start playing it, the day Xbox comes out, Xbox Series X, and I buy that thing, and I download Cyberpunk, the Xbox One release version of it, I'll have my cloud save, and I can just continue playing, I
would just about guarantee that you're right, yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't really change anything for me, but I could see where you're coming from, especially if it's a game somebody's looking forward to. It's just, if you own an Xbox right now and you're planning to get the Series X, I don't think there should be any hesitation in picking up Cyberpunk in September, because it's going to work on the Series X. Like, you're going to be able to play it. Especially if you're already planning to like play Halo Infinite at launch and stuff like that. But maybe you don't pick up the Series X and you play Cyberpunk, so you're not tempted to stop and play a different game and, have it get lost in your backlog. Who knows? But sorry.
The other variable is obviously like, well, what else is coming out? And especially on the PlayStation side, it's like, well, is there going to be another PlayStation 5 or next gen exclusive game that I really want like to play on that console as opposed to the PS4? In that case, then it gets even trickier.
Yeah,
that's kind of the other variable I didn't mention. That's obviously, if Horizon Zero Dawn 2 launches, in November, December, only on PS5, I think it's possible. More likely probably the following year, but that would really influence, and that would make things even trickier. I'm trying to figure out what to do, but yeah.
Well, the thing that Cyberpunk ruins for me, and I say ruins, it's not really ruins, but changes and alters, is that the new Assassin's Creed game, obviously it's rumored to be Ragnarok, but we know when the new Assassin's Creed game's coming out, those always come out in October, right? Like clockwork. So this coming out mid-September, that means that instead of me jumping on that in October because I'm impatient, maybe playing through Cyberpunk will let me be like, I'll wait till I pick up my Series X in November, we're assuming, might come out in October, and I can just play that then, right? So it kind of helps me in a way because I can just wait for that new Assassin's Creed game on Series X. You know what I mean? So who knows? We'll see.
We can get into a longer conversation a different time, I guess, but I'm just struggling to justify like the leap to next gen right now. If it's only going to be, enhanced resolution at the start or whatever, right? And that's kind of why I'm like, I don't know. I'd rather just play Cyberpunk on PS4 and wait half a year or something to upgrade. If all they're going to do is just the resolution's higher, I'm like, well, then I'll just wait, I guess. Because I already made that jump that was basically the jump from PS4 to PS4 Pro, right? Which is great. But we're kind of all going to be capped at 4K, and 60 frames per second, right? So once they've hit that, which especially on the Xbox side, they already have with One X. So it's what extra are you getting by going to next gen at this point? That's what I'm curious to see how they sell that.
You also have to think about it is not most people who own a PS4 or Xbox One don't own the X or the Pro.
Right.
So the jump for especially like me, I still run on it. I don't even have an S. I have an OG VCR, right?
Yeah.
So I get you. I could care less about visual fidelity, like the way something looks. I mean, I care, but that jump isn't going to be astronomical. The performance thing, I think, will be the most easy to identify upgrade for people who own the base PS4 or the Xbox One. Not stuttering, especially with the game like Cyberpunk, man. You're talking about a game that is going to... Anyone who owns a base Xbox One or PS4 that grabs that thing, even maybe a PS4 Pro from what I've heard with the fan issues, you're going to be having a jet engine in your living room when that game comes out. Undoubtedly.
I guess the biggest, or another large piece of it is going to be the loading times too, especially on those types of games.
Yeah. It is a question for people to have, but that's the thing is we've had this question for generations of when the PS4 and Xbox One came out, people the people who aren't going to upgrade. It's that with the fact that everything's backwards compatible now, they're having the people who normally would buy day one for sure, maybe not for sure, but pretty certain, like you and me, questioning of like, is it worth it? I'm always going to lean towards getting it because I like being an early adopter for stuff I believe in, right? I'm not just going to early adopt anything. And honestly, do you have a PS4 Pro or do you still have a PS4?
The Pro.
See, like I talked about, I have the base Xbox One, so I have the biggest incentive to just upgrade, right? I've staved off buying an Xbox One X or a One S. It's like, there is a new generation. I've needed to upgrade to my console, so might as well just do that. Why would I buy an S or an X? You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
right.
I get where you're coming from, though. It's a tough conversation to have. So those are the delays. Obviously, it's always better for a game to be delayed because it means we're going to get the best version of that game. My one concern is I didn't like how Cyberpunk put in their PR release that they want to make this game perfect, because obviously nothing's perfect, and you're going to have the people who don't understand what they mean by that to be like, when the game comes out and it has bugs and it has issues, because it's going to, with the scope of the games they make, there are going to be issues on day one. People are going to be like, well, you said you delayed it for it to be perfect. That's the whole reason we waited till September. You know how those people are.
Yeah, I think people need to... I mean, semantics are important because I think perfect, even the like 10 out of 10, that doesn't mean without issue, right? Because like there's this thing called rounding, right? So like 999 out of 1,000 is still 10 out of 10, right? So perfect is it's a word. And the way you hear it and what it means, I guess, is important.
Semantically, I would have loved if they said to make it the highest quality game it possibly could be. That's what I would have appreciated. But once again, I don't really care. I'm not going to lambast them over Twitter because it has some bugs at launch.
Right. I like perfect. I mean, I like that that's what they're going for, I guess. But
yeah,
it's a high mark.
Well, yeah. So we were planning on doing that and then hopping right into the Game Awards. For not the Game Awards, the Controlled Interest Game Awards for the year. But Matt Piscatella hit us with some steamy MPD numbers right before we went live. So we're going to go over two different things, the top selling games for 2019 and the top selling games for the decade, okay? So the top selling games for 2019 work is this, and remember, Nintendo games don't count digital sales. That's very key in this. Number 10, Mario Kart 8. Number 9, The Division 2. Held on. Number 8, Kingdom Hearts 3, held on. Number 7, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Number 6, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Remember, that game was only out a couple of months. Mortal Kombat 11 at number 5. Number 4, also only a couple of months, Borderlands 3. Can you guess number 3, number 2, and number 1, Dom?
1 is going to be Call of Duty.
Correct, ding, ding, ding.
2, we said Mortal Kombat, we said Fallen Order.
What's the genre of video games that sells like hotcakes but often gets overlooked by games industry media?
What are we doing? Madden or NBA?
Both of them. Ding, ding, ding. Yeah. Yep. So 3 is Madden, 2 is NBA, 1 is Call of Duty. Pretty by the nose, by the numbers, you'd assume that'd be the case. Some people were wondering, well, what about Pokemon? Pokemon's not on this list. Once again, Nintendo doesn't do digital numbers. I would guarantee if digital was on there, because most people I know personally bought it digitally. I know very few people who actually bought it physical. Obviously, I'm trying to extrapolate from that personal experience, but I would guarantee the way they said it broke franchise records upon release, that if they counted digital, it'd be on the top 10.
And same thing, too, where that came out real late, right? Wasn't it November? So
Exactly, yeah. And next up, we're going to be going over the best-selling... I guess before we get to the best-selling games of the decade, there was an interesting tidbit for Jedi Fallen Order, Dom. So, with only 2 months in the market, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order became Respawn Entertainment's best-selling game of all time, which is always great for people to be rewarded. You think about it, Titanfall came out at launch. Titanfall 2 had a great single player, but didn't sell very well because it got released like the same week or in the same 2-week span as Battlefield 4. And then obviously Apex Legends was free. So we're not talking profit, we're talking best-selling. I'm assuming Apex is probably their most profitable game of all time. But yeah, it's really cool. And it landed at number 6 on the list, only being available for 2 months, which is awesome. Now, A list that's you're not going to be surprised by. The top selling games of the decade, Dom. If you were to guess how many of these were Call of Duty games, how many would you guess?
Top 10 of the decade? I don't know, probably at least 5.
8.
Yeah,
Seven. That's I miscounted. So at number 10, Minecraft. Okay.
Really?
This is on dollar sales. Remember, Minecraft's a $20 game.
Shit. Okay.
Yeah. I thought it was going to be much higher, but when they said it was based on dollar sales, then I'm like, okay, number 10 makes sense.
And I think it's even cheaper, like on iPad.
Oh yeah, it's like 10 or $5 or whatever. Yeah. So I think there's also deals for like if you already own it, you can buy like a second family account for cheaper. So yeah, remember this isn't based on units sold. This is on dollar sales. Number 9, Black Ops 4. Number 8, Call of Duty World War II. Number 7, Red Dead Redemption 2. Number 6, Call of Duty Ghosts. Number 5, Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Number 4, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Number 3, Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Number 2, Call of Duty Black Ops. And your number 1 game of the decade that still charts in the MPD to this day, Grand Theft Auto 5. So, if you look at that list, 2 of them are Rockstar games, which we know that that's the only time ever anyone challenges Call of Duty for the best-selling game of the year, right? And it's evident by this list. And Minecraft, which is, I think, currently and technically the best-selling game of all time in terms of unit sales. It recently, in the last year and a half, passed Tetris. So, there's your list. No really surprises there. Matt Piscatell actually extrapolated on those numbers a little bit. And so for the 11th consecutive year, Call of Duty has been the year's best-selling franchise, which is insane.
Wait. Say that one more time.
For the 11th consecutive year, Call of Duty has been the year's best-selling franchise.
So, Call of Duty Black Ops 4 sold more copies than Red Dead Redemption 2 the year they came out?
According to this, it's based on United States dollar sales, remember.
Oh, yeah, U.S. only. Okay.
Yeah. So, and also, Call of Duty, the Call of Duty franchise releases account for 10 of the top 15 best-selling games of the decade. Yeah. So, any drop-off there, we're still going to be seeing Call of Duty for quite a while. That franchise is far from dead. Just a powerhouse in the industry.
I mean, they just put out what is apparently a fucking really good mobile version, but I want no part of it.
Yeah, I ain't having it. Modern Warfare this year is good. I've enjoyed it. I like the campaign. No. Yeah, and the multiplayer is solid too. Has the typical issues of Call of Duty, but
they're good games. They're maybe formulaic at times, but these are very consistent and good games and addictive type games. So.
Well, mechanically, they're often the best, or at least near the top every year with their shooting mechanics. So it's they're just well-made games. Let's hop into this Game of the Year stuff. So the way we're going to do it is I really want us to focus on our top 3 personally, as in big talking points. The rest of the list, I want us to go through kind of quickly. You don't necessarily have to do one word, but a couple of sentences for why it's there on your list, right?
I really appreciate that. I think that's better because I didn't even hardly play that many games that came out this year, so I don't even think I had 8 or 9 total. So the top 3 are more meaningful than the top 10 for me, right?
Yeah. So the way we're gonna do it is I'm gonna go over Jordan's list first, then we're gonna do Dom's, then we're gonna do mine, then we're gonna do Game of the Year, and then we'll give our side little awards for our personal things. And I had 3 categories. Oh, actually, Dom, you came up with one of them, right? Or did you come up with 2 of them? One of them,
Just
I think.
The one.
So one of them is the game we wanted more time with. So this is either a game you weren't able to get to at all, right? You didn't play any of it, but you wanted to. Or a game you played some of, and you weren't able to finish and you wanted to go back, right? Falls anywhere in that category. Just a game you didn't feel like you completed. Not necessarily see the credits roll, but you didn't feel complete by the time you ended your time with that game, or you didn't even start it. Second one is played first in 2019. So this is a game that you really enjoyed in 2019 but didn't release in 2019. So it's an older game, not a 2019 game. Could have been a 2018 game. Could have been a 1995 game. Who knows? And the last one, this was your suggestion, right? Or was it this one? Your biggest disappointment, which we all had a very clear one, which is cool. So for Jordan, let's get into his GOTY list. Number 10, Anthem. I think this is a product of him not playing more than 10 games and it making his list. This one was quite a shocker. I knew he didn't like this game. He didn't love this game, but I think over the course of the year, as he ruminated on it, he liked it less and less. So Kingdom Hearts 3 is his number 9 game, which if you know Jordan and Dom, they love Kingdom Hearts and they were very excited for that game. So it sucks that he just felt that way about that game, but hey, it happens. Number 8, Blasphemous. This was actually a contender for my Need More Time with. This is a game I wanted to get to and play. This is the 2D pixel art style Dark Souls, Bloodborne. I think it's Metroidvania, isn't it? To some extent.
With absolutely like brutal kill animations.
Metal as hell.
Yeah, I'm all about that kind of shit. This is one that I should have put that on my wish I had more time with too, because this is like so much about it is right up my alley. So
both of us, we're the From guys, and it's just like we didn't get to it, or you played it. I didn't even get to it, right?
I didn't even touch it.
You didn't even play it. I thought you started it. My bad. Number 7. This is a game that I think Jordan started, but he never completed. Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Wouldn't be surprised if that's on Dom and I's list. Just look forward to that. Number 6, Katana Zero. Love that game. I was personally a little upset that it didn't get more love at the Game Awards, especially for like soundtrack of the year. Really solid indie title. Number 5, I thought this was going to be higher up for Jordan personally. Borderlands 3. I thought this was going to be, because he loves Borderlands. He was looking forward to this game. But when he played it, it was more of that the Fallout 4 thing for us, where we enjoy it, but it's not revolutionary for the franchise, right? So it's hard to like super love it. It's just more of the same. It's like comfort food in a way. Number 4, Pokemon Shield, which is surprising for me. I thought this was going to be lower on the list. He had a lot more issues with the game, rightfully so. I think I'm a little bit more forgiving when it comes to the Pokemon franchise.
And I think let's dive into the psyche of Jordan while he's not here, of course. I think he sometimes comes off super critical, but he actually does like stuff more than we think, Yeah.
He's not a curmudgeon. No. Number 3, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I'm glad that he enjoyed something Star Wars this year. I know he liked Mandalorian. Obviously, he probably had his issues with Rise of Skywalker. But yeah, this was a solid game. Once again, this will likely be on Dom and I's list, so continue listening for that. Number 2, Control. This is another game that I remember Jordan had a lot of issues, rightfully so, with the ending of this game, because it gets very convoluted and overly difficult for no reason whatsoever. But this game's beautiful. Art style, just everything about it, game direction is awesome. Didn't sell particularly well. It sold good for what Remedy wanted it to. But yeah, it didn't, I don't even think it charted MPD the month it came out, unfortunately, which sucks for a game of its caliber. And it won IGN's Game of the Year, so shout out to Control. And number 1, Fire Emblem 3 Houses. So the JRPG.
No shit.
Yeah, this is a game I wanted to get to, but I never had a chance. It isn't on my Need More Time with, but yeah, his number 1 game is Fire Emblem 3 Houses. And this is a game that, if I remember correctly, he started and then restarted, right? Because he changed like the difficulty or something to permadeath, I think is what the case was.
That sounds right, because I think I remember commenting that when you do that, that says a lot about how much you like the game to be willing to restart and lose progress.
I guess we'll get into his stuff real quick. So the game he said he needed more time with was Beat Saber. Just a really cool game. Arguably the killer app for VR is Beat Saber. I've seen so many stories of people falling in love with that game. It kind of struck the chord with a lot of Guitar Hero and DDR kids that wanted that kind of interaction with the music style game. So not surprised there.
Healthy too.
Exactly, yeah.
You can get fit. I guess.
There's some really cool training regimens where people put on like weighted vests and like wrist weights and stuff, and you can actually get a pretty decent cardio workout that way.
Get some like buff shoulders with that.
Yeah, right. And his played first in 2019 was Final Fantasy VII. We had gone back and forth on this earlier in the year because I was debating whether or not to play it, and I just decided I'm going to wait till it's closer to the release of the game. And then we found out it's not coming to Xbox until 2021, so I'm going to be waiting a little bit longer personally. But it's cool to see that was the game he played first in 2019 and he enjoyed the most. It wasn't necessarily a 2019 game. And his biggest disappointment, I thought, was going to be Anthem. But if you look at his list, you'd be like, oh yeah, his biggest disappointment was Kingdom Hearts 3. Obviously. I don't think his expectations were sky high for Anthem the way they were for Kingdom Hearts 3. I think he liked Anthem less than Kingdom Hearts 3, but his expectations for that series and his love of Kingdom Hearts, I think, is what made it his biggest disappointment, right? So that's unfortunate.
X triangle. Repeat. That's the game.
Yeah, we don't say cross. We're an X household.
Oh, that's right. Shit. I forgot about that.
Dom, hit us with your GOTY list.
Shoot. Okay. Disappointment 2019. The Dark Pictures anthology? Is that the precursor? Whatever.
Yeah.
Man of Medan from the Until Dawn studio that I'm blanking on the name of right now. Holy crap. Why can't I think of what those... Anyway, I was super pumped for this game. Until Dawn was absolutely phenomenal. It was a adventure style horror game. Really took all the horror tropes, and I don't know, it was just super fun to play with other people too, with you. But Man of Medan, just broken in a lot of ways, very technically screwed up, just chugging and glitching and frames just stopping and starting all over the damn place. And in addition to that, while the story started out like, oh, this could be interesting, like this is a good start, it very quickly turns into absolute nonsense. And when the game you're playing, because the story is nonsense, you're going through like these repeating dark hallways that are completely meaningless, and it just turns into a giant garbled mess of fucking bad Skrillex music. And it bummed me out because I was looking forward to this so much, and it was I could never have imagined I wouldn't like it. And I'm typically not overly critical of stuff, and this game was just bad.
Super massive games, by the way.
Super massive games. I have faith that with the next game in their anthology, they're gonna do better, and I'm gonna play it either way. So.
Well, with the shorter games and the dev cycle turnaround, I think part of that is to learn from their mistakes, right, and be able to fix things. So, hopefully, we see. I like the idea of the anthology. I just want them to nail it the way they did with Until Dawn. So I'm with you there.
Yeah, because even Until Dawn, if I had to critique it, I could say it was a little long. And you kind of like, it's like a campy horror story. It's like you can only do that for so long, right? So yeah, I was into the short story version of this, but this game just missed the mark in a lot of ways. Moving on, a game that didn't come out in 2019, that I played in 2019. This was an easy one. Red Dead Redemption 2. It took up the majority.
Arthur.
Chunk. Yeah, it took up a huge chunk of my year. But damn, I was glad because this was one I missed in 2018, the year that also included, Spider-Man and God of War. And a few other really good games. So Red Dead 2, just especially having not had played the first one, was one I missed in 2018. So I was glad I got back around to it in 2019 because damn.
Can I confess something to you?
It's a good game. Yeah, of course.
I think with next gen, once I get myself a 4K monitor or whatever, or at least capable of it, I think I'm going to replay through Red Dead Redemption 2 on the Xbox Series X. I've been yearning to replay through it again. I love that game so much. Ugh.
Yeah, it looks incredible. I mean, graphically, it's absurd. The attention to detail and every little thing that occurs in the game is it's nuts. So, and actually, while I was playing Days Gone, which I may not mention again, may or may not, you can hunt, and you hunt a deer, and then you go to skin the deer, right? And then as you do it, the camera kind of turns and it faces up towards Deacon, the protagonist, and you don't see the deer being cut open, right? And then
Yeah.
it just turns into an item in your inventory, which is totally fine. That's great. I mean, it still looks
Yeah.
good. You know, I mean, no one would ever fault them for that. But in Red Dead Redemption 2, every animal you hunt, you get like the most detailed, fleshed out little animation of Arthur cutting and
Ripping the
skinning
skin
deer.
off. Yeah.
And
You hear it.
And I don't know what it looks like, but it looks what I would imagine to be damn realistic.
So, as somebody
So,
who grew up with relatives who hunted a lot and seeing them skin animals like right after they got back from their hunt, it pretty authentic.
yeah.
Less
I assume
blood,
so.
but pretty authentic. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just one example, but that's the entire game. Is like the attention to detail they put into every little thing is just it's unworldly. And there's not necessarily like I'm not necessarily like having a grand old fun time watching Arthur skin a deer, you know, gameplay wise, but I liked it. You know what I mean? Like I love that kind of stuff. I could see where some people might be like, all right, here we go again. But I could appreciate that kind of thing all day. And then of course the story is just the characters and the story and the world, especially as a result of the attention to detail I mentioned. Like it's all super super good. Like yeah, I could talk about how good Red Dead 2 is for a long time. But yeah, for needed more time with. This was an easy one. So I have Death Stranding just sitting down next to my console. I booted it up, played the first like 3 hours, and just was like, whoa, okay. I don't have time for this right now. I want to do this, but I just can't. I gotta be in the right state of mind for this shit. This is something else.
Pun intended. It's a walk.
It is a walk, and it, from what I've heard, it does deliver.
Nice.
The biggest thing though, like in that moment where I was like, okay, I gotta stop this, and I ended up switching into watching, you know, fucking Star Wars Rebels, which is the exact opposite of that game. But Death Stranding, everything I've read about it and heard about it, like I'm in, and I think I'm gonna like this. But one thing it does is, it's a whole crazy new world, and you know you have to learn about like all the weird stuff that's going on, and it all makes sense, but you have to learn, and it tells you like, oh, this was the Death Stranding, and they explain what that was, and this is what a BT is, and they explain what that was. This is what a BB is, and there's all this new vocabulary all at the beginning of kind of like explaining to you how everything works in this world.
Yeah.
It's just a lot to learn. Every single thing that happens, like there's vocabulary and a new word that goes along with it. And sometimes they don't need to do that. They could have just called that something else. For, you know, there's a word in English for that. Kojima, you could have used. But they really like to give you exposition, I guess, on what they're creating. So that kind of like, I was like, I can't think about all this shit right now. I need to turn my brain off for sure. Anyway, I do want to spend more time with it though. So as far as top, I don't even know how many I have, like eight or
9.
seven or
You have 9.
Kingdom Hearts 3, I have it 9. I didn't have the highest of expectations for it, but a couple of the worlds were really cool. Toy Story World was incredible, mostly. The story was all right. It was understandable, and it was good, I guess. Nothing crazy. But the gameplay was just extremely repetitive. And while at times, like, all the special moves and bonus moves and stuff like that you can get are like really cool and fun to watch. You just, like I mentioned before, you're just pushing X 10 times and then pushing triangle for your bonus move after your thing had built up, and then you're doing that over and over again. So the gameplay just wasn't as engaging as I would have liked. And some of the newer worlds, particularly the one that I remember the most, the Frozen world, was just awful. It was just dumb because it was just all white. There's a couple trees. I think you slid down a hill once with snow, but it was just a lot of white areas, and that's it. It was the opposite of an area in Red Dead Redemption 2. You know, there's just no detail. It was just trees and white. I don't know. Then a few of the others were like that too, where it was just unremarkable. You know, not necessarily anything wrong, but it's just they could have done better. I hate to be so critical, but yeah. Kingdom Hearts 3. Next, Cadence of Hyrule. The Legend of Zelda, prefix, suffix, whatever else was included in that crazy title. This was a fun game. It was a musical game that was a 2D top-down Zelda game that you had to play according to a beat. And it was fun.
But didn't you turn that off?
Yes,
So you didn't
So
have to play it to the beat.
normally, every move, whether it be a sword swipe or a movement to the next piece of the grid, everything you do or didn't do had to align with the beat of the music that was playing. I turned that off. So once you turn it off like that, then you take that element out. You still listen to the music, which is really good. Excellent music in this game. I'll say it's like remixes of Zelda songs, so that's really cool. But the way I played it without requiring the movements to the beat, still made it like a strategic puzzle game. I could actually like sit and stop and not have to move, even though the beat's still going. Because like, man, that would be difficult. But yeah, you're looking at the whole grid of the screen and like, that enemy is going to move down once you move up. So it turns into a little chess match, which is a really cool spin on like the typical 2D Zelda gameplay. But yeah, still a short game, but it was, a cheaper game too. But it was really fun. So I think it was cool that they allowed an indie studio to take the franchise and put their own spin on it. So Cadence of Hyrule, number 8. Number 7, Gears 5. Not Gears of War 5, but just Gears 5. Courtesy of Xbox Game Pass. Thank you, Phil. Best value around. This is probably, and it's been a long time, like probably a decade since I played Gears 1, 2, and 3. But I think it was Gears 2 or 3, the story where there's big things happen, certain characters don't survive. There was some
2.
emotional heavy moments in that game that I can't remember all the details of, but like it stuck with me. But Gears 5 has a lot of that too, and it's just a way more polished version of all the previous Gears games, but with overall better characters and a better story and more engaging. The gameplay isn't necessarily anything new and crazy. It's just a better version with a few new things thrown in. But yeah, this was a great game, and I don't know. It was awesome. I want to say it's the best Gears game. I don't think I'm crazy to say that either. I'm gonna go
for these next couple ones. Let's pick up the pace a little bit because
man. Next, Outer Worlds. This is Obsidian, and they made a Fallout game in space, and it's pretty damn cool. It hit on all the marks of what I wanted out of Fallout 4, with like all the dialogue options and RPG elements. It had all that stuff, and it just was missing a little bit of the charm that the Fallout games typically have. Like it still goes for a lot of that humor, but it just doesn't have the same like meaning, I guess. They try to create their own new little mascot guy and some stuff, but it just feels almost a little cheap. Like I don't want to say a knockoff version of Fallout because it does a lot of things better, but in terms of like trying to have its own character, I think it just kind of misses the mark a little bit. But still an awesome game.
Also, thank you, Phil, for Game Pass.
Also, Game Pass gave me that one, so kudos to Game Pass. Next, the Link's Awakening remaster. It looks incredible. The new art style is fantastic, and I enjoyed replaying Link's Awakening on the Switch. That being said, this was it reminded me like, oh yeah, Link's Awakening is kind of like lower on my list of favorite Zelda games. Still, that's still a great game. That's not necessarily a knock saying you're one of the worst Zelda games. It's still like one of the better games ever. So, Link's Awakening. Next, Resident Evil 2 remake. Never played the original Resident Evils, 1 through 3, back on like PS1. So this was totally new, but graphically, what they were able to accomplish with this game was really cool. I'll always remember like a zombie coming towards you slowly, sticks its hand up as it reaches out for you, shooting the zombie, and you can see the bullet hole go through and take off a chunk specifically of the zombie's hand. And then like kind of the blood and parts of it just dripping and hanging off of the hand. That's the kind of stuff similar to Red Dead Redemption, the kind of detail they put in, but like in gameplay, and like I don't know, it was just a super awesome game. And having Mr. X or Nemesis, whatever the hell he is, follow you around and hearing his footsteps from a room away is just haunting, and I absolutely love that kind of shit. So the game was absolutely excellent. Next is Days Gone. So I'm actually not even done with the story in this game. I'm gathering it's going to be a long one. But the best thing I can say about this is it puts together a lot of parts of other games, specifically The Last of Us and Far Cry, which are 2 games I absolutely love. So combining those 2 things and then also throwing in, Sons of Anarchy, which is a show I really liked, even for its like corniness. There's something about like biker culture that's just really cheesy, but also hyper violent. I don't know. It's a weird thing. But anyway, yeah, so this game takes a lot of all like those 3 things and melds them together really, really well. The biggest thing I can say about this was, I think I mentioned it last week, but in one of the early trailers of gameplay, you see one of the hordes of zombies coming at you, and you're just mowing them down with an assault rifle, and they kind of just fell back. Each of them fell backwards as if they were made out of paper, and it looked really dumb and not like impactful. But actually getting into this game and playing it, it's much closer to The Last of Us, where like 2 or 3 zombies is extremely threatening, and each one of them has like a lot of weight to them, and are hard to take down. But yeah, the gameplay is excellent, from the shooting mechanics, the melee, the stealth, and so far the story, even despite a weirdly weird intro cutscene, the story is really, really engaging so far. So even though I'm not done with it, I felt it was worthy of a spot on the list.
Awesome. Number 3
sticks the landing. Yeah. Next, the 1 and 2 I struggled with picking a spot. These could really go either way, and I wouldn't have a problem. But for 2, I said Sekiro, a game that apparently I played for 100 hours, which is nuts to me, because I don't even know where those hours came from. I certainly don't have them available to me. But anyway, what I can say like more than anything about what this game did that I loved was so this game basically gave me the Dark Souls 1 experience of playing that game for the first time. It gave me that all again. So Dark Souls 2 and 3, and even a little bit of Bloodborne. Excuse me as I fix my camera, which apparently doesn't want to stay up. So Dark Souls 2 and 3, already super familiar with how the combat works and how the game flows and how the areas work, things like that. They didn't quite have the same moment of like, when you clear that first area and beat that first boss, that same feeling of accomplishment. You don't quite get that once you're so used to it. But Sekiro, even for someone who's played a shit ton of Dark Souls, the combat is entirely different. There's some similarities, but the core of it is so different that you basically have to relearn everything, because as coming into it like a Dark Souls game, you just get your shit handed to you over and over. Miyazaki found a way to like redo the combat, and even for those of us who had gotten so good at mastering his games, found a way to make us learn it all again. But with that means you also get those same feelings of accomplishment when you first beat Genichiro and the owl and some of the other bosses. The Guardian Ape was also a great one. There's a handful that are just such good boss fights in this game. And each step of the way, as you learn new mechanics and the combat gets deeper and deeper, you keep on getting those same feelings of like just absolute like euphoria when you finally take down a boss. And then you're better for it afterwards. So it's those same feelings you love about a Dark Souls game the first time you go through it, but reinvented and redone, and you get to re-experience it, but in a different way. So I can't. This game is just spectacular. So 1 at this point should be no surprise is Jedi Fallen Order. So probably the best Star Wars game I can think of that I've ever played. That seems weird to say, but I can't think of a better one, because this game was
Force Unleashed 2? You kidding me? I'm obviously joking.
Yeah, no, and I've actually been interested in those Force Unleashed games. Never played them, but heard they're all right.
All right's a good word to describe them.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. So For one, this does all the Star Wars stuff really well. It's set in a period in the Star Wars universe and time that is really interesting, and there's a lot to explore there. Plus, you get a lot of powerful boss type enemies that you can use that don't necessarily impact the canon universe all that much, and you don't have to worry about because the problem with these types of games that exist in a larger world where there's movies and this, that, and the other thing is what can and can't happen, what can and cannot happen, right? You're not going to kill Darth Maul in this game, right? That you just know you're not gonna. But there's the way where this game takes place in the world, without spoiling things. It lets them use the Inquisitors, for example, as kind of like bad guys that you can do things with in the story that give the writers freedom, I guess. The combat is kind of an easier version of what you're doing in Sekiro and not as deep, but that's all right because it's still really fun. But then they also throw in Metroidvania style exploration throughout the worlds, and then some climbing and sliding elements of Uncharted, and some big set piece cutscenes a la Uncharted as well. So it does a lot of things from different games and mushes them all together, puts a really, really polished coat of Star Wars paint on all of it, and it comes out to like an absolutely excellent game that I'm still mad that EA spoiled in a commercial, but that's all right. Minor spoiler for one moment in the game is all. And the sliding was just awful, actually. I don't know, like all the sliding in this game, like they should have just not done that.
I've seen people complain about that, and I love the sliding. My thing was the rope swinging. I hated the rope swinging. I could do without any of the rope swinging. I loved the sliding.
The rope swinging was excellent, I thought, especially once you learn to force pull. I guess spoilers. I don't know, whatever. And then
Force pull is not spoilers. It's a Star Wars game.
Right. But yeah, once you have to like jump and then pull while you're in the air to reach the next rope. I don't know. I thought that got cool pretty quickly. But the sliding, it was like there was like 3 in particular that I must have attempted each slide and then jump like 50 fucking times because I don't know. It's just the worst sliding mechanic I've ever seen in a game. I don't know how that passed any kind of testing.
See, I never had. I literally had no issues with it, and the only time I ever had to redo a jump, it took me like 1 extra try. And that's just my experience. That's why when I hear people talking about this, I'm like, why do you guys hate it so much? And they're like, oh, well, I had to try this jump 50 times. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, so. And you want me to go with my list?
Yeah, that's it.
One thing is like the top of our list are similar through all 3 of us, but there's a lot of variety, which is really cool. So I'll
Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. I wasn't sure if I should keep talking. So number 10 on my list is Katana Zero, which is an indie game I was looking forward to for quite a while, and it delivered. Like I said before, I wish it got a little bit more love at the Game Awards, but neither here nor there. Katana Zero is number 10 on my list. Number 9, which most people would assume would be higher on my list, is Pokemon Sword. I really liked the game. It just, when I was looking at all the games I played in 2019, it just felt right putting it at number 9. I don't know why. But yeah, I actually loved all the games on my list. Kingdom Hearts 3 didn't make my list, and there was quite a number of other games that didn't make my list. Number 8, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. During the MPD section of this podcast, I briefly talked about how much I love the campaign, and the multiplayer is really solid. Number 7, Link's Awakening. Really enjoyed it for what it was. Still think it's vastly overpriced for what it is, but still really enjoyed it. Love the art style. Number 6, Super Mario Maker 2. Love this game so much. It's a game I actually pop on every couple of days and do some random levels and such. There's a game mode in Super Mario Maker, if you're not familiar, Dom, where it gives you a set amount of lives depending on what difficulty you play on. And I usually play on Expert, so it gives you 15 lives, and you have to see how many lives you can complete before you run. How many levels you can complete before you run out of lives. It's really cool. Oh. Yeah, it's really fun.
That does sound cool.
A lot of replayability there with all the user-generated levels. I was trying to say created and generated at the same time. It wasn't coming out clearly.
Man. That's the type of game that if I had that, like when I was in, elementary school or even middle school, like the amount of replayability and the amount of variation, like I would have consumed that for just, hundreds of hours.
The amount of hours I would have spent sitting there with graph paper designing my own levels would have been insane.
Yeah.
Number 5, the only game on this list I didn't complete, Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Layer. I tried and tried. It wasn't really a super like difficult thing of like, I guess the issues people have with From Software games. It just felt unfair in many moments, the way the last level was designed towards the end. It's just like, this isn't difficult to try to test my skills. It's difficult because it wants me to continue playing this game. You know what I mean? That being said, the rest of that game is incredible. Some of the best platforming. People who love Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze would easily love this game. Really had a blast with it. I can't wait to see what they do next. I'm interested to see if they go another genre with the third game. Because the first game, 3D platformer. Second game, 3D platform open overworld, but the actual levels were 2D platformers. So I'd be really interested to see what they do with the third title in that series.
Kart Racer.
Hey, man, you never know. Number 4, Control. Really love this game. I think the thing that hurt this game for me the most was the ending and the fact I was playing it on a launch Xbox One. I think if I would have played it on an S or an X, I would have had a better time with it overall in terms of performance. But really still enjoyed the game. I'm still holding out hope for Alan Wake to return at some point. I liked Quantum Break. Like, I'm actually a pretty big Remedy fan now, when I look back at their game. So I hope this game gets a sequel. I like Control the way that people like the Metal Gear games or even Death Stranding. Of like, it's so weird in a very artsy way that I just love it, right? So shout out to the janitor in that game too, who blares one of the coolest songs that I've heard in video games. It was actually up for a Game Award, I believe. Now, the top 3. Now, here's the thing, Dom. You talked about your number 1 and your number 2. Could go back and forth. You had so many issues with it. For like the last week, I've actually, like, these top 3 have moved around like multiple times. Just thinking back on them. Number 3, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Loved this game. I mean, everything you said and more. I don't need to go on and on. You perfectly described what makes this game special.
It's so good.
Yeah, and we're possibly getting Elden Ring again this year, which is going to be so dope. Did Activision screw it up? No, they didn't. Awesome. I really hope we see a sequel to Sekiro. I hope Activision puts money behind them because it did pay off. Yeah, really loved Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Guardian Ape, arguably my favorite gaming moment of 2019. Easily. Number 2, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Once again, you said a lot of what makes this game special. I think people like to say like, oh, it's a jack of all trades, master of none in Star Wars. I think it does a lot of the things it pulls from other games better than the average developers do, but it doesn't do them to the level of the people they aped them from, if that makes sense. But I still think they're above average in all of the elements of this game. And then obviously the Star Wars story that wraps it all up just takes it to another level. I think the biggest enemy of this game was time. I think Respawn was strapped for time to get this out, and that's why it did come out with as many bugs and issues as it did. I didn't experience a whole lot of them.
Yeah.
But they were pretty evident. So you can't ignore that.
I heard a lot about that in reviews and things. I'm like, but with my playthrough, I'm like, this is really polished. And I'm like, I don't have anything like that except the sliding.
Yeah. My big hope for the sequel is that there's multiple costume options outside of just ponchos. Being somebody who liked the ponchos, I still think that there would have been nice to see some variation there. I think the casting
were ugly. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah, because there's like 20 of them, and I liked like 8 of them. So yeah, I would agree with you there. Like, yeah, majority of them for sure. The crew of the Mantis, I really like all of them. All of those characters are dope. Deborah Wilson, who plays Seer, she is dope in Wolfenstein. She was also in Call of Duty, Modern Warfare. So like,
nice.
She's just, I'm glad that she has found a place in video games because she was one of my favorite actresses and comedians on Mad TV back in the day. So it's cool to see her have a second resurgence to her career.
Towards the end of that game, tiny spoilers for Fallen Order. when you see her in action finally, like through the glass, and you see the move she does, like take down the two, whatever they're called. Oh my god! I was like, oh, like she just kicked ass. I was like, holy crap! We finally get to see her in action, and it pays off.
And Trilla is one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. I'm not going to tell you who that is, but it's a character in the game, and it's one of my favorite characters in Star Wars in recent memory. I think the writing was so well done.
It's a droid that cleans your shoes.
Trasha. And number one, can you guess what my number one game is?
I am like, right now, when you said that was Fallen Order was 2, I thought to myself, what in the blazes is 1 then? If not Fallen Order or Sekiro.
There's one game that has exceptional quality that I played throughout 2019 constantly and consistently and had a blast the entire time. Apex
Madden
Legends.
Or Apex? Yeah, okay.
I would never make Madden my number one game. God, that franchise needs a lot of work. Apex Legends is the highest quality battle royale game out there, bar none. I'll die on that hill. Obviously, they had some hiccups with some microtransaction stuff, which is going to happen. But in terms of actual gameplay, I think they've done a tremendous job updating that game with new characters, new guns, new events. They added an entirely new map. Yeah, it doesn't update every week like Fortnite does, but I do think that Fortnite doesn't do a lot outside of changing the map and stuff to get people excited. And for me, we've had this discussion of like, I just think Apex's first person shooting is like world class, whereas like with Fortnite, I just don't like the third person. I've never liked that type of combat. The sliding mechanics in Apex Legends change things, the way they've made it so you have to work with your team. One thing that Fortnite aped super quickly is the ping system in Apex, which completely changed the battle royale landscape of being able to communicate with your two teammates without having a mic. And it changed the game because it made it viable for someone like me who's solo queues to go in and actually win consistently with random teammates. I just think that it was the most consistent, and I just thought it was the best game, bar none, that I played in 2019. And
man, I was kind of surprised that we didn't see that mentioned in more of the outlets for Game of the Year awards in any categories. I don't think I saw it much, but it was like reviewed really highly and people loved it. And like quality wise, you seldom heard a complaint, only praise. So I'm surprised we didn't see more awards for this.
It won some multiplayer awards at the Game Awards, but yeah, it was never really a contender for Game of the Year, which sucks. Which you have that, and then you have Star Wars not meeting the deadline for cutoff for a lot of these things. So Respawn kind of got screwed twice.
Yeah.
So we're just like, whatever. Before we get into the cumulative Game of the Year and tell you what won our Game of the Year, my biggest disappointment, Ghost Recon Breakpoint. I obviously had to get a refund for that game. My boy John Bernthal was part of a turd, which actually might have repercussions for Ubisoft moving forward in terms of them delaying their games and, double checking them before they let them go out based on their past merits and not doing anything new or innovative. So that was pretty disappointing. Game I played first in 2019 just because I didn't have time to get around to it in 2018. Spyro Reignited Trilogy. I'm 2 games through, and it's a nostalgia thing for me. And that and the Crash remasters are done so well. Arguably some of the best remasters of all time. Just incredible. Love that game. Need more time with The Outer Worlds / The Outer Wilds. Both of these games, The Outer Worlds, I'm way farther in than The Outer Wilds, but they're 2 games that hit like the Jerrad exploration. For Outer Wilds, exploration, sci-fi world. It's all a universe happening in real time, right? Outer Worlds, you talked about it. It's Fallout with a different coat of paint, yada, yada, yada. So those are the 2 games I wish I had more time with. Now, the Controlled Interest Gamecast 2019 Game of the Year. With a 4-way tie at number 9, Borderlands 3, Katana Zero, RE2 Remake, and Yooka-Laylee. Coming in at number 8, Days Gone. Coming in at tied at number 6, Link's Awakening and Pokemon Sword and Shield. Nice. Tied at number 4, Apex Legends and Fire Emblem 3 Houses. Coming in at number 3, Control. Now, if you do the math in your head, you're like, okay, so it's between Sekiro and Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do the math in your head, me and you both put Star Wars in front of Sekiro by just one slot. But where did Jordan put Star Wars and Sekiro, if you remember correctly?
3 and 4, maybe 2 and 3.
Coming in at number 2, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Coming in at number 1, our 2019 Game of the Year, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which isn't a From game. You'd normally assume that we'd pick the From game as our Game of the Year, but it was the game that aped some of From Software's gameplay.
Hey, can't beat them. Join them. Or
yeah, I
steal
mean,
from 'em, whatever.
that top 3, man, Control, Sekiro, Star Wars. I know you didn't play Control, but like that's a solid top 3, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, before we close up the show, let's talk about what we've been playing. Real quick, the only thing of note that's, I guess, I finished Breaking Bad, which is awesome. Still need to watch El Camino. Really enjoyed it. I thought the finale was really solid. You know, most shows don't nail their finales. I thought it did an expert. We talked about this in the chat of like, there's some moments in that finale that are just like, pull your heart out of your chest, you know? Like I said before, the way I kind of relate to television shows and movies and stuff, I need to connect to a character, and that's my one gripe with Breaking Bad is when the credits rolled on that show, I loved how they wrote the fates of all those characters, but I didn't wish, the best for any of them. I just was like, yeah, it's kind of the life you chose. You know what I mean? It's like, I guess the only person I would say that I hope has a good life is the daughter, the little baby. Other than that, I just like, you guys all made the bed and lie in it. Other than that, I started and finished Untitled Goose Game. Shout out to Phil Spencer. Thank you for Xbox Game Pass. Yeah, a lot shorter than I anticipated. So there's areas that you goose it up in, right? And there's a garden you start in, then there's a back street, then there's these secondary like high-end people's backyards, and then there's a pub, right? Only 4 areas in the game. Really fun. Some of the puzzles, little obtuse. I wish it was a little bit better crafted, but as a Game Pass experience that I really had to pay no money for outside of my subscription for 2.5, 3 hours, great time. I got all of the achievements minus the speedrun ones. So there's achievements for completing each section before the church bell rings, which is like the timer, right? But yeah, I really enjoyed it. If you have Game Pass, I would suggest trying it out. It's fun just to get in a game and be an annoying animal. Like, you're just this goose and you're honking your horn and taking people's keys and just being the absolute worst, right? And it's just so great. A section of this game, you can like steal this kid's glasses and give him worse glasses. You can take his toy that he's playing with and drag it over to the store that this lady runs, and she'll put a price tag on it. So when he goes to find it, he has to buy his own toy back, which is like hilarious. Some really cool stuff in there. Bunch of little neat Easter eggs, not relating to other properties, but like things you have to work for to like figure out and uncover. But yeah, really enjoyed my time with Entitled Goose Game. Didn't expect to play it this week, but hopped in and yeah, just rode that 2.5 hour wave of being an asshole. What about you?
Just more Days Gone and been watching a lot of Star Wars Rebels.
Nice. We talked about this in chat. My goal is to watch Star Wars in chronological order this year. I've never seen Rebels, never seen Clone Wars. For Rebels, I'm going to watch all of it probably. For Clone Wars, I think I'm doing the need to watch arc episode list thing. Yeah. I'm not a fan of either of their animation styles particularly. I've just never been a fan of that style. But I've heard the character writing and everything that happens in those shows is like must-watch Star Wars, so I'm down to take the plunge. Anything else?
No, that's it. I've been living simple lately.
Oh, one cool thing. I know we're not talking about what we're going to be playing, but I didn't mention this in the news. Xbox announced some more Xbox Game Pass games today, and one of those was A Plague Tale: Innocence, which was a game that got a lot of good reviews last year, and it was a game I was actually thinking about buying. So in the future, I might end up picking it up on Game Pass. That one's only on PC, though, which isn't a huge bummer because the way it works for Game Pass 2 is you still get achievements on PC. And now that I have a Bluetooth, like the newer Xbox One controller, it's not as much of a hassle to plug it into the PC. So I should be good to go. That's it for this week's episode. Thank you guys for joining us. Once again, our game of the year is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Thank you guys for watching. If you can, please follow us on iTunes. Leave us a review. It helps us in the dreaded algorithm. If you can, go over to Twitter, search CTRLINT. That'll pull us up. That's Controlled Interest Abbreviated. Hit us with a follow. I tweet out interesting stuff and obviously all the videos that we have that get uploaded. I can be followed personally at Jerrad _. That's JERRAD_. Dom can be followed at Dom's Oreos, and Jordan, who's not here with us this week, can be followed at Mellow Modus. Lastly, if you go to YouTube, hit that subscribe button. The bell notification lets you know, hit that bell underneath the video, lets you know when we upload new videos. The sub boxes on YouTube can be unreliable. And like the videos as well, if you enjoy them. And leave us comments. Comments definitely help. It lets us know that we're doing a good job with the show. We'd love to hear feedback. And whether that's on Twitter or YouTube, we want to hear from you guys and let us know how we can make the show better. And if you guys are enjoying what we're doing and maybe what you think we could do better. So thank you guys for listening this week, and we'll catch you guys next time. Bye.